In my previous life, I had resigned from my job to prepare for pregnancy and childbirth. I gave birth to a daughter, but my husband's family scorned me, and my husband was indifferent. After suffering from postpartum depression, I jumped off a building with my daughter. Then I was reborn. Clear-headed, I started by refusing to have a child. Under the temptation of a $50,000 allowance, my husband would repeatedly volunteer to make tea and serve Mrs. Wang. She was a housewife who lived off me, yet she still demanded money from me. Did she want a divorce package with nothing? Now, clear-headed, I started by refusing to have a child. The tragedy of my life stemmed from pregnancy. The doctor said my uterus wasn't in good condition, and I would need plenty of rest to conceive. Hearing this, Mrs. Wang, eager for a grandchild, immediately came up from the countryside. She used every trick to make me resign from my job to prepare for pregnancy. She even went to my parents' house and caused a scene, claiming that they had wasted money on the dowry to marry off a woman who couldn't bear children, thereby cutting off the Chin family's lineage. We had just gotten married, and my parents didn't want to make a fuss. Besides, having a child was a big deal. Ethan also promised 3 times that after I gave birth, he would support my return to work. My wife is so capable, it won't matter if she takes a few years off and then comes back. At that time, our love was passionate, and my career was on the rise. I thought taking just a year and a half off wouldn't be a problem. But when I tried to return, there was no longer a place for me at the company. Now, reborn, only an idiot would resign. Only with an independent income can I have a voice. I told them, the company has an important project recently, I can't turn it down. Let's put pregnancy aside for now. But I had already come up with a plan. I had consulted someone who said next year would be the auspicious time to get pregnant. Then, Ethan and I will go to the temple to pray, and I guarantee we'll have a chubby grandson. Hearing, grandson, Mrs. Wang's eyes crinkled with delight. She praised me, calling me a virtuous and sensible daughter-in-law. But seeing the dregs of the medicine on the ground, it was clear she hadn't given him the full dose. I immediately told her to brew another bowl. If she likes doing it, then let her. No need for too much talk. Besides, I never said I was the one drinking the medicine. Doesn't she have a precious son? This is a mother's loving gesture. Her precious son must drink every last drop. I deliberately went to Ethan's company, bringing him this spiritual gift, and watched him drink it. What's that taste? So strange? I chuckled. Oh, it's nothing much, just some turtle, toad, and earthworm bits. They say these things are very nourishing, good for a man's health. These were literally Mrs. Wang's words, returned exactly to him. Immediately after drinking it, he vomited. Watching him like that, I felt deeply satisfied. Today, it's your turn. Back then, after a year, I still wasn't pregnant. Though Ethan didn't say it, his eyes were murderous. Just then, Mrs. Wang brought me this miracle medicine, claiming it would be highly effective. I didn't think much of it and drank it. It was only when I became pregnant that he told me what was in it, proudly boasting to his friends, "See how good I am. Whatever I tell her to drink, she drinks." My husband frowned, complaining, "Mom, why do you make these things?" See. He knew these things weren't good, but when it didn't concern him, it wasn't a problem. Back then, to get pregnant, I went everywhere for treatment, almost falling into depression. I just hoped for a little comfort from him, but he simply said, "If you can't get pregnant yourself, what do you want me to say? Can I get pregnant for you?" So this time, he had to drink it. Drink it every day until he drops dead. I looked at him sincerely, and my reasoning was very convincing. You stay up late working, so tired like this. If we have a child, the quality won't be good. I don't know if he listened, but he started to argue, telling me to return to the family. That's where a woman belongs after marriage. Didn't you say work is tiring? From now on, I'll earn the money, you just need to stay home. At that time, I was at the peak of my career, under immense pressure. I suffered insomnia every night and lost a lot of hair. I had actually considered resigning, but I didn't expect him to trick me. By the time I realized it, it was too late. Staying home sounds nice, but frankly, it's being a parasite. I won't be like that. You know I'm not that kind of person. It might not be now, but very soon, I'll earn the money, you just stay home will turn into, it's all my money, what right do you have to complain? In just 1 year, I fell into his sweet trap. He initially said I'd stay home to rest, but then he saw I wasn't busy and had to find some chores for me. The house needs cleaning, laundry, cooking, right? Once I started these chores, it was implicitly assumed they were my responsibility. You're so quick and agile, that's great. And I have my elderly mother, why don't you take care of her too? So, I took on the responsibility of caring for the whole family, from morning till night, working myself to the bone. When I wanted to rest a bit, my husband would come home. If I dared to lie down then, it was impossible. Mrs. Wang and my husband would think, she's just at home playing on her phone and watching TV. Why doesn't she help her husband with his bag or prepare water for a foot soak? Lazy woman. Her husband works all day, he's tired, and she still expects him to watch the child and do housework. Just thinking about such scenes filled me with dread. Losing my job, having no money in my pocket, I had to ask them for every penny. You're at home buying cosmetics. Who are you trying to look good for? You don't know how to manage a household at all. Eating random things, you dare to buy strawberries for 40,000? Do you know how hard it is to earn money now? Ethan isn't coming home today, so we'll just have a simple meal tonight. They even interfered with my going to the bathroom. Just a little pee and you flush? Such a waste of water. Why not wait a bit and flush together to save more water? Such a suffocating life. I had experienced it in my previous life. I didn't want to taste it again. If you're so capable, you do it. Although it's tiring, my company said I'm about to get a promotion with an annual salary of 50 million. So, I want to tell you, why don't you resign and stay home to take care of the family? I'll give you 5 million a month. You can rest and take care of Mrs. Wang for me. Facing such a good offer, he would certainly agree. But the moment he nodded, it was predetermined that he would step into the abyss, just like I did all those years ago. It's a shame that he's a man and doesn't have to experience pregnancy and childbirth. Those two things alone took half my life. The result was that after I gave birth, lying breathless on the bed, Mrs. Wang complained, "You spent too much money." "Mom, it was a difficult birth. I needed emergency care. Of course, it cost a lot of money." She grumbled, essentially saying that in their time, having children was like laying eggs, there was no fuss like now. Moreover, I gave birth to a daughter. From then on, she never looked at me kindly. During my confinement month, she did whatever she wanted, dancing and singing, never asking if I needed help. When I opened my mouth, she'd immediately shut me down with stories of how they went back to work the day after giving birth. Fine then. I gave birth to this child, I'll take care of her myself. But even then, they wouldn't leave me alone, constantly criticizing. "The baby's crying, it must be because you don't have enough milk. Who told you not to eat much during pregnancy, only caring about your figure? So selfish. The baby has a rash all over, they said I must have eaten something unclean. You must not like the confinement food and craved snacks, right? If the baby is sick, it's even more my fault. You're a woman, at home doing nothing but taking care of the baby, and you can't even do that. What else are you good for?" When I gave birth, I had a severe tear. The doctor wanted me to stay in the hospital for a few more days, but Mrs. Wang constantly complained about the cost, so I went home early. In fact, during my confinement, I suffered from severe infection and blocked milk ducts. It was very uncomfortable. They didn't care at all, just stood by coldly, saying, "Who doesn't experience this when they give birth? It's easy." On top of that, I was a new mother with absolutely no one to help, and I didn't know what to do myself. I asked my husband for help. At first, he complied, but then he became more and more perfunctory. "I don't have milk. Why should I get up in the middle of the night? Besides, I have to go to work tomorrow." Mrs. Wang also told me, "You can't let him sleep at night. How will he go to work tomorrow to support you and the baby? Who are you trying to harm?" At Mrs. Wang's urging, my husband moved to the study that night to sleep, so I had no one to help me. In the middle of the night, when the baby cried, I ignored my tear wound, carried the baby, and walked around the room, soothing her. Through the wall, I could hear my husband's thunderous snoring. From that day on, I didn't realize I was suffering from severe postpartum depression. My act of jumping off the building was entirely forced by them. My tragedy stemmed from having a mother-in-law who knew no boundaries. She wanted to control everything, even my intimate moments with my husband. "Lucy, didn't I tell you not to forget your husband because of the baby? Are you just going to abandon your marital relationship?" It turned out that my loving mother-in-law, seeing her son hadn't had marital relations for half a month, became anxious, fearing he'd become stuffy. So she kept persuading me. Reluctantly, I had to confess that I strained too hard during childbirth, and now I'd leak urine with any slight exertion. I thought this reason would extinguish her persuasion, but the next day, when relatives came to visit me during my confinement, everyone asked about it. "I heard our niece leaks urine." Their eyes looked at me as if watching a joke. Even the little children ran in and mocked me, so big and still wets herself. At that moment, I truly wanted to die. I didn't understand why Mrs. Wang harbored such animosity towards me. Later, I overheard her talking to a friend and realized she did it to put me in my place. You absolutely must not spoil your daughter-in-law. You have to make her fear you. That way, she'll listen to you in everything later. I found it utterly unreasonable. Since getting married, I asked myself I treated her well. I often gave her money to buy nourishing food. She said it was hot and she felt uncomfortable, so I immediately took time off work, went back to her village, and installed air conditioning for her. I always called to ask about her life, and whatever she lacked, I tried to provide. Once, she fell while farming and broke her leg. I drove 200 kilometers back to the village, picked her up, brought her to the city, and took her to a big hospital for examination. I covered all the expenses, including caring for her at her bedside. I asked myself I treated her quite well, but what about her? She never spent a penny on me. When I got married, all she offered was a wish for 100 years of happiness. When I was pregnant, she cooked for me but demanded payment. After childbirth, it was even worse. My mother, from the bed next to mine, visited her granddaughter with a full envelope and gold bracelets, while Mrs. Wang came empty-handed and grumbled, "Giving and receiving such a hassle. We're family now, why bother with these things? It's an outdated custom." I thought she didn't have money, but that wasn't true. She bought a house for her younger sister and a car for her nephew. Even distant relatives who asked to borrow money, she'd agree. She just refused to spend a single penny on me. When I discussed this with Ethan, he blamed me for overthinking. "It's Mom's money, she can spend it however she wants. Why are you eyeing Mom's wallet?" It turned out I was in the wrong. Therefore, from now on, he would receive his salary from me. I would treat him however I pleased. Just wait. Mrs. Wang was furious when she heard my husband resigned, but when I said I would give her $5 million a month, she immediately smiled broadly, praised me a few times, then turned to praise her son. "My son is so capable, he found such a rich wife." I pretended not to hear and told her the tasks that needed to be done at home. Not just cleaning, but also taking care of Mrs. Wang. Seeing me specifically mention her, she was delighted, praising my understanding. "Thank you, dear, I'll take you to heaven," I thought to myself. Thank you for what? After settling everything, I became the boss of the house. I could throw my clothes around without tidying up, doing whatever I wanted. I could use the excuse that his snoring affected my sleep to kick him out of the room. I could sit with my legs crossed perfectly normally without being criticized as an improper woman. I could order him to bring me foot-soaking water and tell him to massage my feet, just like he used to demand of me. But at this point, Mrs. Wang couldn't stand it anymore. She said I didn't respect my husband. "He's a man after all." My husband quickly stood up. "Mom, don't say anything else, I'm happy." Mrs. Wang angrily scolded him. "You coward, how dare you use my money? That $5 million is mine asterisk. Why are you taking it?" Mrs. Wang was cornered. It was the truth. I paid them their salaries, allowing them to spend freely. Mrs. Wang, craving money, secretly took a portion of it to buy a large gold bracelet, showing off to her friends. Later, she bought another gold bracelet, thinking no one would know. Unexpectedly, her son caught her red-handed. "Mom, what are you doing with my money? This week, I planned to meet friends and wanted to buy a watch. Now you've taken all my money, what will I buy?" For the first time in his life, this mama's boy dared to yell at his mother, all because of one sentence from me. "If you serve me well, I'll give you an extra $1 million this month." Anyone can make promises, but whether they deliver is another matter. However, the conflict between mother and son, my divisive tactic, worked quite well. Seeing Ethan get angry, Mrs. Wang constantly spoke sweet words, then resorted to her ultimate trick. "Your mother worked so hard to raise you. The day I gave birth, I almost died, didn't you know? My confinement month was so painful and you cried all night. Do you know how I got through it? See." She also knew how difficult childbirth was for women, but she never sympathized. This only made me colder. But that was good. I didn't need to be soft-hearted in anything I did anymore. Since I started paying their salaries, their lives became quite comfortable. They started indulging in entertainment and endless shopping. Branded handbags were brought home. I remembered when we were dating, he never bought me a single bag, saying, "Those women are materialistic. You're different from them." But once he had money, didn't he also become materialistic and ostentatious? I don't know what kind of act he put on outside, but whenever he received a call, people would address him as CEO Wang, making him as happy as a clam. And my mother-in-law was no slouch either. Every day she went square dancing, wearing a different dress, adorned with gold and silver, telling everyone how capable her son was. This made the dance group leader unhappy. While Mrs. Wang was dancing, the leader gave her a slight push, causing Mrs. Wang to break her leg. Having broken it before, and with her advanced age, this time it was even more serious, a comminuted fracture requiring hospitalization. Mrs. Wang demanded I come care for her. I smiled faintly. If I come to care for you, then I won't get my salary next month, or let your son handle the hospital bills. My husband had no money and immediately thumped his chest, promising to care for his mother. But he had always been the master of the house. How would he know how to care for others? After fumbling around for a while, he made his already irritable mother even more annoyed. Do you know how to do anything? If not, hire a caregiver. There are caregivers, but they cost money. If I pay for that, my monthly allowance will be less. How could he bear that? Caregivers are expensive, Mom. Besides, you're a rural woman, you weren't afraid of hard work farming. Now you're demanding a caregiver? I think you've been here too long and you've become pampered. Once you recover, go back to the countryside. We don't need you here anymore. I heard that night, the mother and son had a huge fight. Mrs. Wang had a heart attack and almost died, while Ethan had his face scratched by his mother. Their mother-son relationship was completely shattered from then on. But that still wasn't enough. I continued to work hard. In my previous life, by staying home to care for the child, I missed out on many good opportunities. Now it was different. I could focus entirely on my career. I arrived home past midnight. I opened his room door and woke him up to cook a late-night meal for me. He looked at me in disbelief. Lucy, are you crazy? What time is it and you're asking me to cook a late-night meal? Besides, I just came back from the hospital. Do you want to kill me? I only needed to say one sentence and he immediately complied. Do you still want your salary next month? He was angry, but thinking that a little patience would mean money, he gritted his teeth and got up. This scene reminded me of the past. Back then, I was just like him, filled with resentment but daring not to show it, simply because the person in front of me held the power of financial life and death over me. Compared to his actions, I was far more merciful. Back then, I was still in my confinement month. My daughter had just fallen asleep soundly when this boss of mine came home. I quickly covered my daughter with a blanket and rushed to the kitchen to cook a late-night meal for him. It had to be 3 savory dishes and 1 soup. Not one dish could be missing. But halfway through, I heard my daughter crying, having wet herself. With no other choice, I had to change her diaper. When I returned to the kitchen, the food was burnt. As a result, he cursed at me terribly with all sorts of harsh words. On one side, my daughter's cries, on the other, his curses. Trapped between the two, I felt so suffocated I could barely breathe. That night, I couldn't sleep. The next day, I called my doctor and described my condition: dizziness, blurred vision, chest tightness, shortness of breath. The doctor told me these were early signs of depression and that I needed to pay more attention, otherwise it would be very dangerous. I had read about many cases, but I never expected to become one of them. I tasted his cooking. Just one bite was enough to make someone want to meet their maker. Ethan said that being home all day, his cooking skills must have improved, so why were they still the same? Don't you have many friends calling you to hang out? You don't have time to cook at home. In reality, he was out gallivanting and showing off, wasn't he? But I wasn't bothered and asked about Mrs. Wang's condition. He said her leg was much better, but she couldn't do anything by herself, and he didn't know what to do. I advised him to be patient. Also, today while I was at work, Mom called and told me to go take care of her. Before I could finish, he jumped up. How can you? You're so busy with work. How can you have time to care for Mom? Let me handle Mom. But she threatened that if I didn't go, she would cause a scene at my company. Actually, I can go, but I'm on an important project recently. If it's successful, there will be a significant bonus. Hearing money, his eyes lit up, and he immediately decided, that old woman is too much trouble. Tomorrow, I'll take her back to the village. From ancient times until now, the relationship between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law has always been an issue. In my previous life, if it weren't for her, perhaps my husband and I could have lived happily together. Unfortunately, when she learned we were living comfortably in the city, she insisted on coming to join us, asking her son, "You enjoy the blessings of the city, are you going to abandon your mother?" With such a huge label of unfilial piety pressed upon us, how could we refuse? We had no choice but to welcome her. My husband said she would only stay a few days and then leave, telling me to be patient. Having just gotten married, I didn't want to cause trouble, so I agreed. but with Mrs. Wang in the house, I always felt uncomfortable. For example, when my husband and I had a little intimacy, she would glare at me, saying I was frivolous. Even when we were asleep, she would directly open our bedroom door, claiming to collect dirty clothes. As far as I knew, my mother-in-law lost her husband early and raised her son alone. I wanted to be grateful to her, but wasn't this too much? I told my husband, and he blamed me for being difficult. My mom is just enthusiastic. Your words are so unpleasant. Why do you think mom treats her son like her husband? What are you thinking? I suggested taking her back, but she overheard and vehemently objected, cursing me out. That matter went nowhere. Afterwards, I became pregnant, and she used the excuse of caring for me to stay. The result was that I, with child, had to care for her. Now that she was back in the village, I was curious if she, accustomed to the comfortable life here, would adapt to rural life. I sent someone to inquire and learned that as soon as she returned to the village, she became irritable, complaining about everything. The food wasn't good, the clothes weren't pretty, and there were countless mosquitoes at night. She woke up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom and found no toilet, so she had to use a basin. The next morning, the whole room stank. She said she couldn't bear it and, dragging her casted leg, went to the edge of the village to call her son, demanding to come back. From her voice, I could imagine how furious she was. How funny, she couldn't even stand it at the beginning. While Mrs. Wang was complaining about everything in the village, my boss at home wasn't sitting still either. He found an excuse to tell me he wanted me to invest in a friend's financial product. High interest rates, guaranteed profit. He brazenly demanded $30 million. It's a bit much, but it's a very good business. Consider it an investment for our little family. He was really cunning. Knowing my project money had just come in, he immediately came asking for it, without even considering if his own brain understood anything about finance. In my previous life, I fell into his trap by trusting him, unaware he was playing with high-interest loans. The result was not only heavy losses, but people even came to our house with knives, threatening to kill him if he didn't pay. Reluctantly, I had to use my dowry to pay it off. After that, I thought they would at least say, "Thank you." But not only did they not, I even overheard him boasting to his friends, who told her she loves me to death. I just needed to find someone to put on a show, and she believed it immediately. So stupid. Now he wanted me to give him money? How could I? I used a different excuse. I want to buy a house. Why didn't you tell me? We'll have children in the future. We can't keep living in this small house forever. So I need to save this money for a down payment. Hearing this, he immediately stammered, mumbled for a while, then started cursing, talking on the phone, and finally turned to threaten me. "If you don't give me the money, get out." Good, I was worried about not having a reason to break up. Now he was digging his own grave. He didn't expect me to be so decisive. He froze on the spot. I didn't give him a chance to say anything more. I immediately packed my things and left. After all, I had money now. I could rent an apartment near my company right away. He, on the other hand, was left alone to bear the family expenses and had to clean, do laundry, and cook. In just a few days, he couldn't stand it anymore. He started coming to my workplace to block me. I knew he was out of money. He was accustomed to extravagant spending, driving everywhere and filling his tank with premium gas, costing so much money. Going out also required decent clothes, all money, not to mention the money for food and showing off outside. He started calling and texting me constantly, his tone humble and pleading. I was very familiar with this scene. Before, I also held my child in one arm and texted him with the other, begging him to come home early. I couldn't ask directly, but had to inquire about his mental health first, beating around the bush before getting to the main point. Now it was his turn to experience it. And this was just the beginning. I wanted him to truly understand the feeling of having no money and having to beg others for it. Without money, he was going crazy. Now he knew how much rice, electricity, and water cost, didn't he? Before, when I said the money he gave wasn't enough, he would curse me terribly, asking what I did at home that cost so much. But food costs money, utilities cost money. He gave me $3 million a month, and those expenses already wiped it out. He even criticized me for being ugly. Everyone else is beautiful after childbirth, but you have a face full of spots like a 40-year-old old woman. That's because others have proper postpartum care, hire helpers, and have harmonious families, which is why they look beautiful. As for me, with no money, no help, and being tormented by him, it was a miracle I didn't turn into a ghost. I glanced at my phone. In just a short while, there were hundreds of messages. Just save a little bit and it'll be fine. But I knew he couldn't show off to his friends anymore. In reality, every time he went out, he rented a car for the day without a second thought. Now, he had only a small amount of money left. After deducting living expenses, there wasn't much. Asking him to do a high-paying job, he wasn't qualified. A low-paying job, he scorned. In short, it was very awkward. Moreover, having grown accustomed to a life of asking for money, how could he have the courage to bow his head? Would he be willing to start over? To be a salesperson he once looked down upon? To do dirty, arduous jobs he once disdained? Don't joke. I had turned him into a useless man. "Do you really want to divorce me?" he shouted, playing his last card. I smiled faintly and immediately sent him the draft divorce agreement along with my lawyer's contact information. "If you have anything to say, contact my lawyer." He went berserk, cursing terribly. I immediately blocked his contact. Saying another word to such a person would make me nauseous. If it weren't for my plan to turn him into a useless man, I wouldn't have bothered with him for so long. The next day, as I was discussing the divorce with him, Mrs. Wang called immediately, questioning me. "How can you divorce my son? Once you're divorced, you're just trash, don't you know that?" I couldn't be bothered to answer such words. Unexpectedly, she came to my workplace, fell to the ground, crying loudly, calling me a wicked daughter-in-law. "When I broke my leg, you didn't come to the hospital to care for me. My son did everything. You didn't do anything useful." She even criticized me, saying I was an eyesore and that's why I pushed her back to the countryside, letting her live or die. I was so angry I laughed. Are these the words of a human being? Especially her acting, it was too skilled. "You abandon your family for your career? You can't stand the sight of me? I'll leave. Why do you have to divorce? I know you don't want to see me, you're doing this on purpose, right? So I'll leave, okay? As long as you don't divorce, I'd rather die." Saying that, she actually rushed her head towards a pillar. She truly stopped at nothing. She created a commotion. A crowd gathered to watch right at rush hour. Many people were recording on their phones and posting it on social media. Thus, I became an unfilial daughter-in-law who abandoned her mother-in-law. My manager called me in to talk. Luckily, I had already prepared evidence, recording all their insults. Living in such an environment was too stressful, which is why I wanted a divorce. "I apologize, manager, for letting you see this spectacle." My manager, also a woman, was very sympathetic to my situation. "No wonder you've been working so much overtime lately, not wanting to go home." Yes, because I knew my capabilities. The money in my account was my fallback. I continued with my life. Recently, thanks to my highly rated abilities, I was promoted and received a pay raise. The mother and son, on the other hand, struggled with money and frequently argued. It was no surprise, they were accustomed to extravagant spending, and now cutting down expenses was difficult. They often fought over this. Neighbors heard them several times and even called the police to mediate, but it was useless. One would say, "If it weren't for you, Mom, I wouldn't be in this situation." The other would say, "Your daughter-in-law was never any good. I told you, but you wouldn't listen. Now you're saying that again? I'm saying it. What can you do to me?" And then another fight. Videos of them fighting spread online, both mother and son injured, looking quite spectacular. "Don't worry, son. I have a way to make her come back obediently," Mrs. Wang said with a malicious glint. I chuckled. "What way do you have, old woman? I'm looking forward to it." The next day, Mrs. Wang and Ethan presented me with a grand gift. They unfurled a banner in front of my company, calling me slut, and announcing they had evidence. Mrs. Wang held up a photo of a scantily clad woman embracing a man, who at first glance looked quite like me. Those unaware might have been misled. "Look, everyone. Ever since this woman entered my home, she's been unfilial to her mother-in-law and cheated on her husband. How can there be such a wicked woman in this world?" Mrs. Wang sat on the ground, crying and wailing, accusing me of this and that, caught in adultery, yet still retaliating. I listened and just smirked coldly. Indeed, there are people in this world who have no shame, turning black into white. Especially Ethan, he even texted me disgusting words. "If you come home and live peacefully with me, I'll retract everything I just said." I understood. He was threatening me. Using such tactics, was he even a man? Back then, I was truly blind, actually thinking he was someone I could rely on for life. "I'm live streaming this online, you deal with it yourself," he said with a vile expression. "If you agree to come back and support me, I'll immediately retract those words and say it was all a misunderstanding. Otherwise, let's see who gets hurt here." What a scumbag. He could do this much for money. but I wasn't the type to tolerate things unconditionally. I smirked coldly. If that's the case, then I'll also give you a gift, shall I? What? He turned around and yelled. Lucy Liu, you vile woman. I chuckled. You can't even handle this. I'm just telling everyone the truth. On the LED screen of the building opposite, I projected a video of him and his mistress in an intimate embrace, utterly sickening. In my previous life, during my confinement, I already knew he was having an affair, but I didn't have solid evidence. Now, it was different. I had been tracking his movements, hiring people to monitor him. The reason I didn't reveal it sooner was because I wanted to find undeniable proof. In the video, he was hugging his mistress, saying sweet nothings like, "Let me kiss you," followed by scenes of the two of them rolling around in bed, utterly disgusting. Am I better, or is your wife better? Of course you are. If it weren't for her money, why would I need that old hag? His contemptuous tone was witnessed by everyone. They were all shocked, cursing him terribly. How can there be such a disgusting man, biting the hand that feeds him? Oh my God, this is why I don't get married, afraid of encountering such trash men. You've successfully made me fear marriage. That wasn't all. I also sent another video that further inflamed netizens' anger towards him. It was a scene of him, out of money, flattering me and asking for cash. Wife, can you give me my salary this month? You know I'm out of money. A man needs some pocket money when he goes out, right? Saying that, he even smirked, trying to get closer to me intimately. That scene disgusted netizens. Playing around with women and begging his wife for money? Where's his shame? And he calls himself a man? Doesn't he feel embarrassed saying that? This is the first time I've seen a man who supports mistresses having to beg his wife for money, and yet he dares to accuse his wife of cheating. I suggest a thorough investigation immediately. Enthusiastic netizens quickly uncovered the truth. Everything he claimed was fabricated. I was busy as a dog at the company. How could I have time to cheat? My colleagues also testified, providing my clock-in times and records, all matching what netizens said. From then on, the true faces of the mother and son were exposed. They left in shame, but unexpectedly, as soon as they got home, they were surrounded by people asking, "Why did you fabricate such stories? Doesn't your conscience hurt?" They were terrified, not daring to utter a sound. They locked themselves indoors, continuously calling and questioning me. What exactly do you want to do? I laughed to death. This question should be directed at me asterisk, shouldn't it? Since I stepped into this family, have I received any human respect? If it weren't for the fact that I'm earning some money now, perhaps in their eyes, I wouldn't be worth anything. In my previous life, Mrs. Wang always encouraged her son to cheat. Do you want to die for one woman? If she only gives birth to a daughter, what then? You need to find a way. Don't worry, Mom will help you cover it up. Just thinking about this made me sick. Mrs. Wang was furious, throwing a tantrum, preparing to rally her relatives to surround me and teach me a lesson. Oh, so you're sure you can call them? Mrs. Wang froze. I asked her, did you ever wonder why, when you wanted to deal with me, your relatives didn't come? That's because I'd already paid them. Those people were only in it for the money. Besides, they didn't know me. Why would they harbor animosity? Previously, they listened to her because she bribed them. Now, would they still come? But they weren't entirely inactive. At least, in helping me refute them, they contributed. They said my mother-in-law abused her daughter-in-law and didn't give a dowry. Especially, her family wasn't without money, she just didn't want to spend money needlessly. She loved to lecture others, thinking that way she could tame her daughter-in-law, who would then obey her. Once, she even secretly wore her daughter-in-law's clothes, got caught, and then cursed her daughter-in-law, saying such clothes shouldn't be worn. All sorts of bizarre stories that opened people's eyes. Netizens were furious. Their spit alone was enough to drown them in a wave of criticism. I heard Mrs. Wang suffered a sudden myocardial infarction and was admitted to the hospital, unconscious. She might not make it. My husband wasn't doing much better. On one hand, he had to care for his elderly mother. On the other, he had to work to earn money. But that meager sum wasn't even enough to support himself. How could he support an elderly mother in the ICU? Reluctantly, he called his mistress, asking for help, only to be ridiculed terribly. What kind of relationship do we have? Aren't you clear? At this moment, he realized that the love his mistress spoke of was nothing but a lie. Finally, he thought of me. I'm sorry, wife, I was bad, it was all my fault. Wife, can you give me one more chance? I will definitely change. I flat out refused. You only think of me when you're at your wit's end, but I don't want to be an idiot. When my mother-in-law bullied me, why did you never stand up and say anything? Didn't you know how bitter those words were? Didn't you know it was wrong for a mother-in-law to arbitrarily use my belongings? Didn't you know she shouldn't enter our room while we were sleeping? There were so many other things. You weren't unaware. You just didn't want to stand up and protect me, because that was your mother, and I was just an existence that could be there or not. That was the fundamental reason I had no place in this house, and the culprit that led me to that tragic end. And now, you still have the nerve to apologize. Who are you trying to nauseate? 3 days later, I received the divorce notice as desired. My husband wanted to meet me one last time to apologize in person. I said, no need. Not seeing him is the greatest respect for me. He left in disappointment. I heard that now he has to work 3 jobs to cover his elderly mother's hospital bills. Because he's constantly caring for patients, he's exhausted and can't bear it. His temper has become terrible. He's easily agitated and then cries hysterically, just like I used to. As for Mrs. Wang, she woke up and kept apologizing to her son, but what good was it? It was all too late. If I hadn't been reborn, I wouldn't have this changed life now. And those people, they have nothing to do with me anymore. I only paid a very small price to escape that abyss. In the days to come, I will work hard, love life, and enjoy every moment.